Hello, I'm Cindy Ahrens, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3, and a member of the Sustainable Lexington Committee. The objective of Article 17 is to welcome responsible redevelopment in the Hartwell corridor and reduce emissions by encouraging hybrid HVAC in new life science and lab buildings. It is a simple change that is increasingly being utilized in local life science lab projects and quickly becoming an industry best practice. Article 17 is recommended by the Sustainable Lexington Committee because it will help attract lower emission life science projects to Hartwell and support our schools with clean tax revenue. Examples of hybrid HVAC projects have modeled a 60 to 90% reduction of harmful on-site emissions while adding no more than 0.1% to the construction cost, and in some cases resulting in millions of dollars of 20-year net present cost savings. This article also provides predictability for developers with practical standards and helps avoid costly retrofitting. The Clean Heat Lexington Alliance also supports this article, including the Lexington Climate Action Network, Lexington Mothers Out Front, and Lexington Green Teams. Many residents, town meeting members, and other organizations have also given their support. The proposed change here in red adds one clause to Chapter 135, Section 7.4.4 of the zoning bylaw for the Hartwell Commercial Manufacturing, or CM district, in addition to two existing height-based zoning incentives. One of which, 7.4.4.2, requires that buildings over 6 stories do not use on-site combustion for HVAC, and in practice exempt life science and lab buildings because they need higher ceilings and cannot be built over 6 stories under current zoning. The new clause, to be inserted before 7.4.4.2, additionally provides that buildings over 65 feet shall use hybrid HVAC, that is, clean heat, no on-site combustion, as the first stage heating source, supplemented with on-site combustion for additional heating needs. As a result, this addition would lower emissions from taller life science and lab buildings, which is exactly the type of development we want to bring to Hartwell. It's important to understand how these incentives work relative to the different building types and sizes. A typical 6-story office building is about 65 feet tall. A typical 6-story life science lab building, because of the special ceiling height requirements needed to accommodate its equipment, would be about 110 feet tall. Before the zoning changes in the fall of 2020, all buildings in the CM district were limited to 65 feet in height, and there were no emission reducing incentives. All buildings could use fossil fuel combustion for all heating needs, as shown on the left. The zoning changes in fall 2020 included a zoning incentive that required buildings taller than 6 stories not generate on-site emissions from their HVAC operations. This incentive, however, effectively exempted life science lab buildings, as again, labs could not be taller than 6 stories and still be below the max building height of 115 feet. Because labs need additional heating due to their high air circulation requirements, these taller labs can create even greater emissions by using conventional 100% on-site combustion for all their heating needs, as shown in the middle set of buildings. What Article 17 proposes is an incentive that allows taller lab buildings, but lowers their emissions by requiring a very practical hybrid HVAC system. A few words about incentive zoning. It's been used in Massachusetts for decades to benefit communities, including requiring better than code construction in exchange for more favorable zoning limits, like increased height or density. As an updated zero emission state building code will likely take years to go into effect, zoning incentives are an immediate and effective tool. In fact, as the Attorney General's office stated in July of 2020, the towns may consider adopting incentive programs to nudge property owners in the direction of choosing energy systems that do not rely on fossil fuels. Earlier this year, the AGO approved Lexington's incentive zoning language in Section 135, 7.4.4, passed in fall of 2020, further demonstrating the AGO's acceptance of incentive-based building requirements for clean heat or electrification in zoning bylaws. The changes we are proposing in Article 17 merely add to that language and have been reviewed multiple times by Town Council. A hybrid HVAC system, as defined in Article 17, is an HVAC system that does not use on-site combustion for the first stage of heating capacity up to 5 BTUs per hour per square foot. A conventional fossil fuel combustion system can be used for heating needs above that value. This same requirement, 5 BTUs per hour per square foot of clean heat, is part of the May 2020 Easy Code proposal offered as a potential new state building code. That proposal was extensively vetted by a large number of local building engineers, code professionals, and trade organizations. Local developers and engineers have also shown that the 5 BTUs per hour per square foot threshold is a conservative, doable target. As you'll see in the next slide, several new lab projects are using all electric clean heat for the first stage of heating from 5.7 to as high as 18 BTUs per hour per square foot. In discussions with representatives of one property owner developer in the Hartwell area, it was conveyed that they could meet the first 15 BTUs per hour per square foot heating needs with heat pumps for a potential life science project on Hartwell. RMI, a global research institution, has issued a statement on local lab partial electrification criteria, essentially hybrid HVAC. In it, they said they support the adoption of this standard in Lexington and other municipalities as a first step to limiting direct greenhouse gas emissions from new lab buildings. Hybrid HVAC systems are being built into more and more life science lab buildings in our area, including projects by 3 different developers totaling over 2 million square feet of lab space. As you can see from the charts in the appendix, hybrid lab meets lab buildings' performance needs and dramatically reduces lifetime operation costs and the building's on-site emissions. Tenants of life science lab buildings are looking for healthier, lower emission, high performance buildings, and they are taking notice. Moderna just leased one of these buildings because, quote, it was the most sustainable commercial lab building in Cambridge. Why is adding this now so important? Projections of a 3x growth in the Hartwell CM district show that without implementing this incentive zoning change in Article 17, there will be a significant negative impact on Lexington's total greenhouse gas emissions. We can mitigate that emissions growth by requiring hybrid HVAC. And if property owners and tenants purchase 100% renewable electricity, the emissions from that growth can be even lower than those for Hartwell CM today. We could potentially triple Hartwell's square footage and reduce its emissions. We have and are continuing to conduct extensive outreach and review of the article with all CM district property owners, town council, building commissioner and staff, planning board and planning staff, select board, economic development advisory committee, the Board of Health, Commission on Disability, and others. We've heard from hundreds of residents, including town meeting members, that are very supportive of this article. In summary, by requiring taller lab buildings to have a first stage of clean electric heat while still allowing fossil fuel heating to supplement for additional needs, Article 17 encourages better buildings for the future. It provides predictability for developers with a simple, measurable standard, with only plus or minus 0.1% construction cost differential. It avoids costly retrofitting for the near future. Article 17 helps Hartwell adopt industry best practices for more and more Boston area lab buildings, promotes new development, and attracts desirable tenants while reducing on-site fossil fuel emissions 60 to 90%. It supports the town net zero emissions goals while increasing commercial property tax revenue and sets the path for a 100% renewable future. Multiple applications for new developments in the Hartwell CM district have been coming in. Waiting for the building code to improve and take effect years down the road is not the solution for Hartwell. The time to shape a better Hartwell is now. Please support Article 17 and support our schools with clean revenue from Hartwell. Thank you.